Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good evening. My name is Ekaterina Atajanova, and I'm glad to welcome you to a series of talks celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in May. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank the US Embassy for the organization and hosting of this unique meeting. I'm glad that despite the pandemic, we continue to give each other the warmth of long awaited meetings. There are over 22 million Asian Americans in the United States, making up the fastest growing ethnic group in the country, representing more than 30 different nationalities and ethnic groups. The diversity of Asian Americans in terms of their various languages, cultures, and histories, of course, is remarkable. While people think of Asian Americans as a group, the experiences, histories, economic, and social lives of Asians, of course, are not the same. While some Asian families have long histories in the country, many have emigrated to the US recently. Today is the day to talk about identity issues, perceptions and misperceptions, use of terminology, understanding demographics, and the extreme diversity contained within the term. So when it comes to race relations in America, there is no shortage of rhetoric, rage, and accusations, but very little discussion. So it's time to have an open conversation. We have embassy representatives as speakers to share their experiences on how we can support, enrich, empower, and engage one another. So let's welcome Menaka Nayar, Twee Lawrence, and Aaron Pham, and get to know them a little closer today. Dear speakers, why don't you give just a short self-presentation? Let's start with Menaka.
Thank you so much. My name is Menaka Nair. I'm a Foreign Service Officer with the State Department. I've been a diplomat for 15 years. This month is my anniversary. And I have served Thank you. In the Gambia, in Africa, in Thailand, in Pakistan, in Estonia, and in Italy, and now, of course, in Russia, as well as Washington, D.C. And previously, I also lived and worked in the UK and in India. And my husband is also a diplomat, and we have a 5-year-old son, and Russian Blue, who's the latest addition to our family from Russia.
Wonderful. Twee, could you please continue? Twee, I'm sorry. Can you hear us?
I think her mic's muted.
Oops.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. We have some technical difficulties. Yeah, just go ahead.
My name is Twee Lawrence. I'm a spouse of an American diplomat. We have been to Bangkok. My husband been to Pakistan and now Russia. I moved to Utah since the end of 2004. And we've been in Russia for almost 3 years, and we have 2 more months left of Moscow, Russia, and we're excited for our next adventure in Guangzhou, China.
Wow, good luck.
Thank you.
Please, Aaron, continue.
Hello, my name is Aaron, and I'm 25 years old. I am here at the Moscow Embassy with the Marine Corps. My last embassy was Monrovia, Liberia in Africa. And I'm originally from Kansas. I'm a first-generation American. So my parents came from Vietnam.
Good to hear. Thank you so much. So, dear speakers, what does Asian American Month, and I mean Pacific Islander Heritage Month, mean to you personally?
I think for me, it's important that there's recognition of our culture and the contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to a very distinctly American culture. But I think it's also, it's 1 month out of the year, and there's a lot of diversity that includes. So I really am grateful for events like this that showcase that and that bring attention to the fact that it is a very big group we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I second what Menaka just said. It is America is a big country and have so many people come from so many different places in the world, and I think with this month, I think we should have celebrate every month with each places that people create in America. People, so to me, it's a great month to be recognized as Asian American in America.
Thank you.
I think that a lot of people are unaware of, because I'm Asian American, so I have two different cultural identities. I think that a lot of people are unaware of the struggles that people dealt with before they came over to America and they migrated over here. So I like the fact that we have this acknowledgement to talk about it and inform people and educate people of how different we came, how different the world was before, and the benefits of mixing our cultures together and make.
That's so true. Thank you. So may I ask what it truly means to be Asian in the United States?
I would say that it's very much a hyphenate that you mentioned earlier, where it's Asian American, where I think especially for my generation growing up, my parents immigrated from India in the 70s. And there was a lot of focus on integration when I was growing up, and I really wanted to be more American. And I think now when I look at people, even maybe 10 years younger than me, they are celebrating their Asianness at a younger age. And I think that's fantastic. But I also think that culturally, there's a lot more awareness about what Asian Americans bring to the United States and also the different cultures that we represent. I think, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there probably were not as many different types of Asian restaurants. Maybe you would have had Chinese or Indian. There was not such an appreciation of different foods, different cultures, different things that each nation brings, each Asian nation brings to the United States. So I think there's a wider acceptance now, and that's really been incredible to witness even in my lifetime. But I think it also means that you're, as Erin mentioned, you're straddling two different cultures. And especially as a young person growing up, that can be very challenging. And you have to make some decisions about sometimes straying from what your family thinks is our culture to make decisions for yourself.
Thank you.
As for me, I feel proud to be an Asian American. I did not grow up in America. I moved there when I was already 23 years old. But I'm proud, and I was proud to be able to contribute my small share of the Vietnamese culture to my family and friends in America.
Okay.
One of the best things about living abroad and being here in Moscow is the information that you start to learn about different cultures and stuff. So coming back to America and being an Asian in America and having a wider perspective of life in the different cultures, I think it makes me more humble and understanding of the differences. So I'm not very judgmental. I'm very open-minded, and I think America is a huge melting pot. And to be Asian in the U.S. allows me to just stay open-minded.
So can we dig a little deeper? Can we talk about your family background?
Sure. So as I mentioned, my parents immigrated in the 70s. My dad had a background in engineering and my mom was doing her medical training. And they actually met in the United States. And then my mom had a visa and my dad only had a student visa. So they went back to India to get married and to get his visa. Then they moved back to the States and eventually had me. And they both come from science backgrounds. But as my mom constantly reminds me that when she was growing up, there were only a few options available for women in India. You could be a teacher or a doctor or maybe some sort of lawyer or something, but it was very finite. And so I was never told that I had to do one particular thing in life, which I wouldn't say is necessarily applicable to all Asian Americans. I think there's a lot of emphasis in our cultures and our communities about education, I think. And I think that really has been a defining thing in my family, is that, education always came first. There were other sacrifices, but education and a good education always came first. But I really have to give credit to my parents because I was quite an independent child and they didn't try to push me on a path, which um, I think a lot of Asian Americans understand there's a lot of pressure from your parents to do really, really well in life. So I'm very grateful that my parents have been so supportive, but even though they don't always understand what a diplomat does or what I'm doing.
Okay.
So for me, I'm the only one who living abroad. My whole family still live in Vietnam. My mom, she's a retired nurse. My dad works for the government. He's a manager. Yeah, I have one younger brother, and it's hard to be far away from family. But I'm enjoying traveling and learn many things, many cultures, and different places.
Okay. Aaron, what about you?
Pui and I, we're both Vietnamese. My parents actually escaped from Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and they fled to the U.S. They moved to Texas, and then they pretty much came here with nothing and a language barrier too, especially learning English in general is very difficult because of the nature of English itself. But being a little bit older, they struggled with English, but they finished high school and now they're working as I think my mother is a nurse and I think my father is an aircraft um, mechanic or something like that. And they pretty much came here with nothing and through hard work and uh, you know chasing the American dream. Now I find that they're pretty happy and successful in their own way.
Does your family have any traditions that are especially important to you? Is there anything specific?
I think there's, like I said, a very strong sense of community, in at least in the Indian American community, and there's a lot of socialization among the Indian American community in the United States, and I think that's because when immigrants came, they sort of looked for people who looked like them and spoke the same language and ate the same food, right? So for me, a lot of the food cultures is very important. I grew up eating certain things that still remind me of home when I have them, or if I go to restaurants, what I order. And in our family, I think my parents are two different religions, so there are very different religious traditions that I associate. But I really, really love Indian weddings. They're big affairs and they bring together hundreds of people and they're colorful and fun. And I really can't wait for the pandemic to recede in India so I can go back and hopefully see some more cousins get married. But for me, that big sense of community and family and extended family is something that's been very important to me.
True. Okay.
I saw some movies with Indian wedding. I was like, oh, they are so beautiful. All the dresses, beautiful color, and they dancing. They stay. I think they stay up all night dancing. I'm like, oh man, I would love to be just attending one of the wedding to experience that. Looks so fun.
So bright, right? Not just for one day. Is that true, Menaka?
It
Do
can
you
be
celebrate?
between 3 days and 5 days usually.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many guests? More than 200, 300?
400, 500,
Wow.
600.
Amazing.
That's awesome. So like Vietnamese wedding is normally only 2 days. So they will have the first day, people who can't attend the second day where the actual day the bride's family go, the groom go pick up the bride. Is the actual day, the day before people come and just, hey, if they just want to congrats, if they can't come the next day. But it's a 2 day celebration that is amazing as well, but not as colorful as Indian wedding. But most people will wear traditional red wedding outside, which is represent happiness and wealth and love. And so the tradition that I like, that's important to me, is so when someone in your family pass away, you will celebrate. You have the anniversary of their death, so you will every year the whole family and extended family will get together and we share a meal and we show respect to the loved ones and share the memories that you have with the person who passed away. That's one of the important tradition that is important to me. And also Tết, the Lunar New Year, that's very important for Asian. For I think Chinese also celebrate the same time, Lunar New Year, and Vietnamese as well. And it's like kind of like Christmas in America, where family just get together, enjoy meal together, sing song, and just hang out, and just spend like the first week of the new year, just every day we walk to different house, you say happy new year's and wish the best coming for the next year, and you receive the little bag. It's called the lì, where they give you lucky money to adults give to kids. That's one of those tradition that really important to me.
Aaron, could you add up anything to that?
So I really like the fact that she said she's talking about food, because sharing food is something that is a huge thing in the culture. Whenever you make new friends or something like that, the first times that you'll meet afterwards is through food, and that's something that Twee is really good at. Actually, is she brings the community together with with her cooking, and so that's something that we really do value in our traditions and our culture, is the respect and love for each other. Our language is actually built on a system that's a little bit different than America, or the American English. Sorry. Um, so we address each other as brother and sister, or uncle or aunt, or something like that. And you don't have to be blood related or even stepbrothers or stepsisters. If I were to meet somebody that's my peer, my age or a little bit older, I would say brother. So that's something that Twee hit it on the spot with the family and just sharing the love and respect for each other.
So it seems to me that you truly have home on both sides of the globe. So how often do you visit, for example, India in case of Menaka, and Vietnam for you, Twee and Aaron?
I was very lucky when I was growing up. My parents would take me back to India every year. So I've been to India more than 20 times. And then I lived there for a little bit before I joined the Foreign Service. And unfortunately, it's just been harder to go back as often. And I was planning to go back this year, but COVID obviously has made that very difficult given the situation there. So I hope to get back as soon as possible. But those yearly trips as a child really made such an impression on me. And I learned so much about the world. And obviously there's a lot of poverty in India, and contrasting that to my quite comfortable life in the United States, I think that really shaped how I view the world, and is probably why I'm a diplomat.
Understood.
I have been back since in Moscow twice, to Hanoi, Vietnam. Before that, when I was in Bangkok, according to my husband, it was too many times. He counted on my passport, it's like 21 times. I went back to Vietnam from Bangkok. It's too many. But I would love to go back as much as I could. But with COVID, I have not been back since. It's been 2 years. But hopefully everything will settle down and COVID will be under control, so we can, get back to see our family members over there.
I'm really jealous. 21 times. I've actually never been to Vietnam, being first generation American, and never thinking about traveling as a younger me. I actually wanted to go and visit Vietnam last year with COVID, and then this year, but I believe that they're still not open because of COVID. However, when I do get to visit in the future, I'm really excited because I've been learning Vietnamese for the past 3.5 years, and I'd love to practice in that dialect, in that same dialect that I've been learning.
Thanks. So, guys, may I ask you, how has this expansion in Asian immigration to the United States over the probably last several decades enriched the overall culture of the United States? You've mentioned some facts about food, of course, music, probably. What else? What have you noticed?
I think it just generally has brought a broader awareness about Asian American culture and the diversity that's within that to the United States generally. And I think, maybe back when my parents were immigrating, people understood that people were from India, but maybe not thinking about Pakistan or Bangladesh, or people were from China, but not thinking about, Vietnam. I think people were thinking in much more homogenous terms. So I think now there's a much broader general awareness of the different cultures that we all represent and the countries associated with that. But again, I do think through things like food and culture, and now I think you're seeing a lot more Asian Americans represented on TV and in film. So I think those are making much bigger inroads and helping to show our diversity and the different cultures that we represent within the broader umbrella of Asian American culture.
I think you say it all, Menaka.
Stop going first.
So I think something that you can see every day is the media, like on television, the entertainment and stuff. The Asian American cultural exchange brings a lot of language. More people are studying Mandarin, which is a very difficult language to learn. More people are interested in Japanese culture now. Anime, the category of TV shows or movies, that's really popular now. It's booming in popularity across the U.S. Korean dramas, that's booming across the U.S. There's large K-pop artists and bands now that are now popular in the U.S. So there's a lot. It's become more widespread, and it's good because it's more welcoming and opening our cultures up to change.
Let's talk about values. You have mentioned traditions, family gatherings. What are some of the Asian values?
I think that's a really broad question, and in each culture and each family probably has their own. But like I said, for my family and for the majority of the Indian Americans I know, there's a huge emphasis on education. And parents will sacrifice anything for education. Also, I think there's a huge emphasis on family and the responsibility to your family and loyalty to your family. And as Erin and Tui were saying, it's not just your immediate family, like everyone is your auntie, everyone is your uncle, everyone is your sister and your brother. So thinking very much of a community as a family. And I think also just an idea that there's a lot of respect. You respect your elders, you respect your heritage, you respect anyone who's even a year older than you is considered your elder, right? And this huge emphasis on that. And I think there's just a lot of, I would say it's hierarchical because of that respect, but I think also that's just ingrained in children that you don't always question your elders. So sometimes I think for Asian Americans, for first, second generation, for kids who are growing up with the parents have that idea that you don't question your parents ever. I think there's always a little clash there. But I think at the end of the day, everyone I know who's of my generation is so grateful to our parents for the things they gave us, the emphasis on hard work and the emphasis on education. I would also say that with the hard work and education, there's also a big emphasis on success. So I think with my generation, it's teaching our parents what that can mean, what that can look like. It doesn't always mean financial success.
Yeah, I agree with Menaka. I think with Asian parents, they have more push on the education. Like if you watch many TV series or comedian, they would talk about, you will see many Filipino nurses and doctors, and you will see many Asian doctors, and they just probably push like, you want to be able to compete with others, you got to work hard in your education and earn the degrees. That's how you prove yourself to others that yes, that we're smart, just like everyone else. I think the Asian parents tend to do that, to push you, and like you said, sacrifice everything so that you can have a good education. I also with Vietnamese, and I think with most Asian cultures, that they values families and respect to the elders, like you said, Minaka. That like in Vietnam, parents will tell you what to do. Doesn't matter if you already married and have your own family, they will tell you what to do and you have no saying. And my mom would constantly, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna, so I'm like, no, I have my own family. This is how I'm gonna teach my kids. But in Vietnam, it doesn't matter, you married, you have your own family, your parents still gonna be the one who are telling you what to do. So we value the families, we respect the elders. That's about my culture.
I definitely agree with that. Respect toward elders is a huge thing. It encompasses a lot of Asian cultures to the point where even if even if let's say your father or your mother are wrong in an argument, for you to call them out on that, it would be considered disrespectful, and that's something that's frowned upon across all Asian cultures. And so we kind of have to bite our lip and just ignore. But we do highly value education, and something else that we value is frugality. Frugality. A lot of Western cultures, they tend to spend a little bit more, but coming from Southeast Asia, a lot of frugality exists to where they find simplicity in like the family and the earth itself. So
So because you work for people and with people, what do you think? How is the Asian American immigrant experience similar to or different from those of other immigrant groups? Do you notice any differences?
I mean, it's such a broad group. I think Asian Americans are often considered the model minority, which is a myth, I think, because yes, a lot of Asian Americans came here with advanced degrees and got professional jobs, but a lot of other people came as refugees, as asylum seekers, as manual laborers, as, people come in all different guises, and I guess they're all motivated by the goal of the American dream, but everyone comes with very different footing. So it's not that everyone arrives with a PhD, and goes immediately to go work at a university or a big company or something. But I think my husband is second generation. His family is from Eastern Europe, and they came about 100 years ago. But his grandmother was almost 98 when she passed away. So his mother was born here in the United States rather than he was born here. And I think that our families actually get along really, really well because they still have a very immigrant mentality that hard work and working your way up was a huge part of his family's upbringing as well as mine. His family had very humble origins and really worked very hard for the successes they had even within a generation and then another generation. So our families actually get along really, really well because my parents are always like, well, his family, they really understand family. They really understand, the value of education. They really understand what it means to be like responsible in the community. So I do think that there's a broader immigrant experience, which is one of really having to work your way up and to get those successes for your family. So I think that is something that I would say all people who still consider themselves immigrants, once or twice removed, have in common. So that's probably more of an answer than you need.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Menaka said. Most people, when they migrate to another country, they tend to work hard, very hard, and they values the money they earn. And I also second what Aaron said. They're very frugal on what they're spending, and so you will see many people. I think they saved up money and they work hard. They push themselves. Might be I think harder than American that been there for a long time. I think.
I like
Karen?
what she said about how, excuse me, about how it might be a little bit hard for Americans that have been there a long time. Because I agree. I think as a whole, immigrants in general, Mexican, Asian, African, they all face pretty similar experiences with prejudice and oppression, where people might not want you to be next to them or live next to them. But it's like when you're a kid and you see someone playing with your toy, you might feel a little bit jealous, but someone teaches you or you learn that sharing with toys becomes sharing toys with friends becomes a little bit more enjoyable because nobody likes to play alone, right? And you learn to accept the differences, and life becomes a little bit more beautiful. And that's what America is really about. So I think a lot of people who used to feel uncomfortable with immigrant groups over time, as America progresses and continues to grow, they become more open-minded and they really do appreciate what immigrants bring to the table, which is that cultural exchange, the friendship, the togetherness, which is what America really is about.
I love your attitude, but there are some dark pages, right? So people of Asian ancestry continue to face discrimination and harassment and prejudice. So what it means for you to fight for social justice?
So I would say, again, there's this myth that Asian Americans are the model minority. And there was actually a lot of writing about that last summer with the Black Lives Matter protests and the George Floyd protests and all the subsequent protests that happened, because there's this idea that because Asians are the model minority, they're better than other people. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, from different Asian communities felt that way because, we're successful or whatever. And in society, we're often portrayed as doctors or, engineers or whatever. And that myth, I think, has been really dangerous because it's kept Asian Americans somewhat isolated from other groups. So there's, unfortunately, in South Asian culture, I've experienced that there's quite a strong anti-Black sentiment. And I think this myth of the model minority was used to perpetuate that. So now there's been a lot of writing done about how we need to look at we need to work as allies to stop racism and discrimination, and that keeping yourself in a silo does nothing to advance the general good and to advance social justice. So now I think, fortunately, one consequence of that is that people are recognizing that we do need to be allies, and that justice is not about one group getting more privileges over another, and that we need to really work together. And I think it's been very difficult for a lot of people to understand that there are deep prejudices within our communities against each other, when it's very easy to say, oh, look how successful this minority group is, and sort of brush over the fact that they're then judging themselves against another group. So I think that this past year has been a really powerful one, and I hope that work continues.
Thank you.
I think it's for me, if you see anything like if people being mean or anything, I would just stand up for that person. Like, is nothing good come out when you being mean to that person, and to fight to fight with harassment or discrimination toward any type of culture or people. Doesn't matter, you Asian, African American, or Indian, or anything. If people being mean, you should voice yourself and stand up for that person. That's how you stop all this violence against human being is not right.
I agree.
That's amazing. That's exactly what I wanted to say, is that sometimes doing the right thing is hard. If everybody did the right thing, the world would be great. But unfortunately, it's hard to stand up for prejudice. It's hard to stand up against racism. And I think that, I'm in the military, so what we teach, so our values that we teach, is that there is no place for racism or prejudice. It doesn't belong here. And I'm taught to stand up against those who face those types of prejudices or injustices. It's hard to stand up against those who. It's hard to stand up against those types of things in real time. But people who can't protect themselves, if there are bystanders, you're stronger together. That's what people don't understand. You're stronger together, and when you band together, just like she said, when you become allies, you can stand up against it. It's your moral responsibility to defend or band together to protect the innocent or people who can't protect themselves.
I heard that there's also a narrative of celebrating Asian immigrants as an example of successful assimilation, while viewing them as perpetual foreigners. So do people still ask you a lot of these questions, like, where are you from, or your English is so good, where did you learn it? Does it happen?
I think it still happens, and I think there are still places and still people when they see an American diplomat, they're like, where's the blonde person? Where's the white person, right? And I don't think people really understand. And I think that's changing, but I think there's still this understanding that you're not what I expected. And I think it's been very interesting when I've served overseas. A lot of people are like asking me about Indian culture, and I have to correct them and say, I'm here to represent American culture. I'm an American diplomat. But I think that's also part of a broader interest in America, because America has so many groups representing it overseas. And so I think I take it as a compliment. Usually they're interested in a culture that's being seen through an American lens, hopefully. But I often have to say, I'm not an Indian diplomat, I'm an American diplomat. But I do think that there's still an anticipation that, for example, if someone's coming to get a visa, they expect to see a very stereotypically American person behind the window interviewing them. So I think, the more diversity and inclusion efforts that we have through the State Department and through the rest of the government, we have a better chance of stopping that. But there are still people who are like, what? I have been asked about my English because someone thought I was Italian once, so I'll take that as a compliment, but that my Italian was okay. But I think there are definitely people who still have a very fixed notion of what an American is and what an American diplomat is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. There's a few times when people ask me, "Where are you from?" and "Why you speak English so fluently?" I don't take offense on that because it's I think it's normal. They can see from my features like I'm Asian. Like that's what they think, that I'm not born in America. I'm not American, but I don't take offense in that.
I don't take offense to that either. I think that some people are just uninformed, and the way that you respond really helps how you represent America and your culture and your character. So whenever people say, "Oh, like maybe I'm on the phone and I talk to someone and I don't have an Asian accent or anything like that," when they see me in person, they're like, "Oh, you're a Caucasian." I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm just American." Um, and I think when those encounters happen, people are like, "Oh," and it sharpens their mind. It makes them more well-rounded and open-minded.
How have Asian Americans been represented in the US popular culture? Are there any maybe consistent images or some patterns that you can identify? I remember you, Manika, mentioned something about lawyers and doctors. Anything else?
Yeah, I think, there many years ago, like in the 50s and 60s, I think there were very, very racist and stereotypical portrayals of Asian Americans, like Chinese people, basically made to talk like cartoons, or having Caucasian actors play Chinese people like in makeup or play other types of Asian people, which was, very offensive when you look at it now. And then I think going through history, Apu, the character from The Simpsons, had this very typical, stereotypical accent and things like that. But then I think when you look, there's often, if there is going to be the one token Asian American character on a TV show, that person is either, the convenience store owner, or they're the doctor saving someone's life, right? And I think now you see, probably in the last 10 years, much more of Asians just being portrayed as normal people who can do anything, any number of occupations, and have complex lives that are not, fitting into a stereotype. So I think you do see a lot of progress in that. And I think what's been really interesting is where you see Asian Americans on TV or in a film, and they're just playing a character, and it's about the character, not about the character's Asianness. And I think you'll seeing people play more mainstream characters who represent Asian Americans. I think that's an important step forward, understanding that we're not just the sidekick or the stereotypical whatever is associated with that particular type of Asian. So I think there's been some progress, but there's still a lot of stereotypes.
I'm trying to find the name of the movie because there's a movie that just, I think the Korean, he's a Korean director, and I think they won the best Oscar.
Parasites, right?
No, not Parasites.
Is Crazy Rich Asians?
No, Mindari or Mindani. I'm trying to find the name. And they just this year, the one of the actors, she Korean, and she won the best, um, not best actor, but I mean, there's you will see many people Asian that it's not typically just lawyer or a nurse or doctors. They can do capable of do many other occupations, engineer. Um, yeah, let's see. I can find the movie's name.
While she finds that,
Yeah.
I have to say that a lot of people portray the Asian men as timid or fragile, but throughout our culture and the change of it, I think a lot of people are beginning to realize that those are stereotypes. There's a new Marvel TV show coming out, and it's called I can't remember what it's called, but it has an Asian actor, an Asian lead actor. I think his name's Shang-Chi. I think that's his character's name. It's martial arts and stuff, and I think that's really cool. Going back to what we talked about with education and how it's pushed so much, our influence as children comes up from our parents, and our parents usually want us to become doctors and stuff. But our society and our community has begun to become more open-minded, and instead of chasing what our parents want us to become, we've begun chasing our dreams, our passions in life. And instead of becoming a nurse or a lawyer or something like that, you begin to find success in your own ways. And I think that's really important to state.
What changes should America make to ensure that the needs of all citizens are recognized? Because I mean, it's tough. We're talking about assimilation on the one hand, right? And on the other, we need to support this unique identity. So what do you think? What changes should America make?
I mean, I think it's partly a question of acceptance, of understanding that being American, there's a lot of hyphenates in front of it, right? You can be Mexican American, you can be Filipino American, you can be, there's very strong identities associated with different regions in the United States. There's a lot of diversity and a lot of different ways to look at diversity. So I think just generally being more accepting of different points of view and different influences is part of it. But again, I think in Asian culture, role models are very important. I think generally role models are important. And I think now that you have a vice president who is of Asian American descent, you have other people at very high levels in the government who represent Asian Americans, I think that helps everyone understand that, there are a lot of us, that we can play many different roles. And I think just the more people are exposed, but I think the messages that Tui and Aaron have said about, inclusion and trying to understand people so that we can do more. I think that's the bottom line, is that, we shouldn't be thinking about our differences. We should really be thinking about our commonalities and what we're all bringing to a shared culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think if Americans would travel more to different sides of the world, then they will be more open-minded. They will see and they will be more accepting of the culture and where the people come from. Or maybe if they can't travel, because of COVID. There's many TV series, many TV shows that you could watch to learn about other culture from different places in the world. Educate themselves about other cultures.
I agree.
I think that's spot on. I also think that America does actually do a great job at recognizing its citizens, its American nation or Asian American citizens. Because if you look at the collegiate level, there's so many minority-oriented programs or Asian American programs that provide scholarships or academic opportunities, and even clubs and social organizations to accommodate our vast and variety of cultures. So I think we do a really good job. I really do.
Okay, so to summarize it a little bit, so let's try to analyze. So how has your heritage shaped the person you are today, right now?
Oh gosh. I think it's made me a hard worker. I think there was no question that I would go to college growing up. So I'm very grateful. I know that, not everyone has that opportunity. So I'm very grateful. So I think I've had a lot of gratitude, especially as I've gotten older, just gratitude and understanding where my family was coming from, even if, in my 20s, there may have been some rough periods. But I think it's given me a very broad understanding of what family can be, what community can be, about what values should be. And I think because I was given the opportunity to travel, to one side of my culture very often, I really understood what the world was, because it wasn't all, living in suburban America and going to, high school just like on TV. It was very much dealing with what are other people's realities and learning about that. So I think that idea of wanting to, every time I make a decision, and again, it's probably led me to being a diplomat, is what is the world perspective, not just the narrow perspective of where I live and what I've been given in my life. So I think it's made me a much more aware person.
I agree with what Menaka just said, and I think with us being born of Asian parents, and we got to pick both the goods from both sides, right? And so I think with us, we be more patient, with other more accepting, and um, we can be more kind to other people.
I think my heritage shaped me by helping me develop a really humble outlook in life. I appreciate a lot of things, a lot of simple things in life. I don't need a fancy car or watch or nice clothes. I really do find happiness and peace in talking to my neighbors or getting to know other people and just honestly just learning a lot about other cultures. I find a lot of things more exciting than others, and I think that that humble mindset um, really does help us connect more. And that's what I love about being here in Russia and being with the State Department is just having the opportunity because there are people that in my last assignment in West Africa, there's people that couldn't go to college, and I had the opportunity to go to college, and since they can't go to college, I can teach them a little bit of what I know through my culture and my education, and that togetherness. Going back to the whole theme of it is what makes life really beautiful.
So since we have no other questions from the audience, I guess I would slowly but gradually summarize the whole event. I would like to thank you so much, guys, for this wonderful opportunity to learn more about your views, your position. I appreciate your honesty and willingness to share your worldview. It's a meaningful tradition that is worth spreading. So let's celebrate the incredible diversity. And I think that's your strength. And it's a wonderful opportunity to listen, to learn about this diversity within AAPI communities, as well as how deep the contributions of Asian Americans to American society and culture are. So thank you so much for your time. It was very enlightening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.